What unrealistic things in movies annoy the hell out of you? Best comments. It always irks me when two characters are talking in a car, and the driver makes prolonged eye contact with the passenger. What bothers me most about that is when you start wondering if it's part of the plot or if it's just shitty directing. Like whenever the driver looks away for more than a glance, I start expecting the passenger to shriek, "Look out!" and point at something. Any hospital scenes where someone is on a ventilator but they are not intubated. Basically any hospital scenes. Or they pull out an IV cannula and there isn't an instant river of blood all over the place. I had surgery about 8 years ago, and after they removed my IV they told me to hold pressure on my hand. I did, for a few minutes, and I made the dumb decision to release it to check if it would bleed. It didn't immediately, so I thought I was good. 10 seconds pass and the nurse was like, "You're bleeding all over the floor, right?" I look back and there is indeed a river of blood behind me. Yeah, I was looking for defibrillator use. You don't use a defibrillator to start a heart that isn't beating. You use it to shock a heart that isn't beating properly into beating at a proper rhythm. I've never seen a movie do this right. When I learned this in school I was 13 and I couldn't believe it. I had to look it up. Literally every movie with a defibrillator gets it wrong and people just assume that's how a defibrillator works. Edit, as people have pointed out I spelt defibrillator wrong 4 times. Autocorrect has failed me today. Monologuing bad guys. The Austin Powers movies made a huge running joke out of this cause it is completely heinous. Terry Pratchett had an interesting take on the trope, something Vimes had learned as a young guard drifted up from memory. If you have to look along the shaft of an arrow from the wrong end, if a man has you entirely at his mercy, then hope like hell that man is an evil man. Because the evil like power over people, and they want to see you in fear. They want you to know you're going to die. So they'll talk, they'll gloat, they'll watch you squirm, they'll put off the moment of murder like another man will put off a good cigar. So hope like hell your captor is an evil man. A good man will kill you with hardly a word. You sly dog, you caught me monologuing. Thanks, buddy. When someone says, "Let me show you," and pick up the conversation 45 minutes later when they arrive. What, they didn't talk about it during the drive? Did they just drive in silence? Tell me, no, you have to see it, really, just tell me, no. National Treasure always gets me. Nick Cage tells his buddy, in the National Archives, that he's gonna steal the Declaration of Independence, and then next scene they're sitting at the Lincoln Memorial and his buddy picks up the conversation like, "What do you mean? Dude, that's like a 20+ minute walk. Did they just walk in silence the whole time or rent scooters?" I burst out laughing the last time I watched it. When someone throws a grenade into a building and manages to make a nuclear level explosion out of it. The way frag grenades become huge plumes fire annoys the shit out of me. Seeing someone die because of flying shrapnel isn't as entertaining as seeing a fucking mushroom in the air, unfortunately. Gotta show the gore and shredding up and front, then. When characters have a perfect chance to explain things fully, but instead they only speak in incomplete thoughts or fragments. Oh my god, that's so annoying. Especially when there is a misunderstanding which could be solved with one single sentence, but the character is just like, "No, it's not like that, no. Let me." It drives me crazy. Happens in many TV shows and movies. Also, nobody ever texts. Like, "Hey, that was my sister. She's staying at my place and was using the shower when you walked in." Easy. No, they just stand in the doorway staring awkwardly going, "Wait, it's not what it looks like." Well, what is it, buddy? Just spit it out. How the main character knocks out the enemy for 5 minutes, then runs 10 blocks, makes a left and runs another 5 blocks only to have his enemy get up, run, look around for 15 seconds and know exactly where the main character went. Or more infuriating, when they run 17 miles and open a locked door, and the pursuer is on the other side of the door. Like, bro, if you know exactly where your prey is heading and you've got Scotty on speed dial to beam you up, just save yourself some effort and go there first instead of running after them. The knocking out itself is unrealistic. I've said this before in another post. Person 1, "Hey, did you hear about X?" Person 2, "No, I didn't." "What is it?" Person 1, "It's all over the news, let me show you." Proceeds to turn on TV to exact news channel talking about X. Hey, turn on the TV. For those of you just joining us, here's a complete recap of the story we just covered on air. I was at work when 9/11 happened. My wife was home using one of her vacation weeks. I called her and told her to turn on the TV. Which channel? It doesn't matter. Edit, I was working in New York for a major broadcast network morning news entertainment show, so we had many TV monitors on with live coverage from multiple sources. Because the shit hit the fan at work, so to speak, we all had to stay late and come in early the next day. since traffic in and out of Manhattan was at a standstill. They were getting rooms for us in hotels nearby. I opted to stay over at my sister's apartment for the night, as she lived several blocks further uptown. I didn't get to drive home until late in the day on the 12th. The way people pick open locks. Nothing about it looks real, mostly. They just channel their inner lock-picking lawyer. Closing parenthesis. Click out of 1. 2 is binding. An IT guy girl who knows everything about computers, networking, all operating systems, all applications, hacking, programming languages, etc. without consulting Google. I'm hacking the mainframe now. Smacking keyboard sounds, we're in. Ding sound. They're onto us. Smacking keyboard sound intensifies. Even better is when the smacking away while a progress bar is moving, as if that'll make it go faster. When they have just woken up after a long sleep, and they look fresh as a daisy. What's worse is when ladies have a full face of perfectly applied makeup without any smudges. I liked how in Bridesmaids Annie woke up early to apply makeup, then got back in bed to fake just waking up that way. This was also done in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Grown adults playing kids. High school boys clearly in their mid-20s that are ripped and have no skin imperfections. Even though I like the movie. The kids in Remember the Titans all looked like 30. They use tiger sounds for a lion. They do this in some nature documentaries as well, and it infuriates me, cause if you're making something educational, at least make it realistic. I suppose a related one would be use of red-tailed hawk calls for bald eagles to make them sound more intimidating. Larger birds are generally quiet as it is. The hooded vulture has no call at all, believe it or not. When someone asks someone out on a date, and they just say yes and then goodbye. The conversation never includes those little details like what day and time, or if they do, it's like, I'll see you at 7. But with no explanation of where. Are they just stalking them and will find them wherever the fuck they are at 7? They addressed this in the Netflix movie, Isn't It Romantic? Liam Hemsworth's character gives his phone number to Rebel Wilson's character by writing it on rose petals and pours them into her hat. She points out that they're out of order now and she has no way of calling him. He says he'll pick her up for a date and drives off while she's standing in the road yelling, "When? Where? You don't know where I live. I want to read the menu and decide what to order first." Actually laughed my head off in that one. A pistol having more rounds than a World War I Normandy machine gun. Silencer is more silent than a girl's sneeze. Enemies can't shoot a target 10 feet in front of them. Protagonist can shoot a target 1 mile away with a pistol. While running. In the rain. Women being chased always trip and fall. Except when it's inconvenient to the plot. Exhibitor. The lady from Jurassic World outrunning a T-Rex in heels. In her defense, it's pretty easy to run in heels if you need to, you just balance on the front part of your foot rather than the heel. Obviously it's uncomfortable, but better than being eaten by a T-Rex. And if you wear heels all the time, you're gonna be used to it and know how to move. The new kid always arrives mid-lecture, gets full on-the-spot introduction. Edit, just FYI, I also had this happen to me in high school. I just find that movies make such a meal of the whole thing with the timing of how the character gets introduced. As we all know though, real life can be pretty awkward like that. Hell, as if the professor actually cares who they are, or in high school cases, like showing up late on your first day would somehow be acceptable. At my high school, tardiness in the first week of a semester was forgiven because the school was huge and finding the room you needed to be in could prove tricky. This was 15 years ago, so maybe times have changed, though. If blood is needed for some reason, don't make a little cut someone convenient, slit your entire palm, which would cause so much pain, and then shrug it off when the action starts. The Winchesters would like a word on how necessary it is to almost chop off an entire appendage for a drop or 2 pf blood. I think it was a joke from the writers, cause it really was ridiculous AF. You would think the palms would just be horrible scar tissue by now. When someone gets knocked off the feet by an explosive shockwave, then jumps right up and keeps running. Seriously, if you're close enough to get knocked over, you're not going to be running anywhere. All your organs are an inch further back than they were before. Your entire head has equalized and your teeth, nose, eyes and ears hurt. You're also deaf for a moment. Black Hawk Down did this right when Spud stood up next to that gun. Deaf for the rest of the movie. Zoom in on that license plate. On that potato quality photo, video. Enhance. Ding. It may sound strange, but coffee in the movies annoys the hell out of me. You can tell there's never any coffee in the cup. It even sounds hollow when placed on a surface. And when was the last time someone handed you a fresh coffee and you immediately tip the cup 90 degrees and take a huge sip without ever checking the temperature? Drives me nuts. Wait, you don't shotgun your boiling hot coffee immediately and then pretend to take sips from the empty cup. Weirdo. The boiling flesh rolling down my throat is my favorite part. The regular occurrence of people ending calls abruptly without saying goodbye in any form. And, while on the phone, never leaving enough time for the person on the other end of the call to speak. There needs to be a few 20-second stretches where the person just listens in silence. Sorry for the multi-comment, but connected to your concept, they should throw in an awkward silence directly followed by both people starting to speak and then saying, "Oh, sorry, no, you go," to each other. A lot of the deaths in horror movies. There's somewhere someone just gets knocked out and they're somehow dead. On the flip side, the protagonist gets shot and, or stabbed, their Achilles tendon severed and the skull pummeled in, followed by them blowing up a building and walking away like some sort of a badass. Cut to a few days later and they've got a few cuts and bruises and their arm is in a sling. Fistfights. If it's something like The Matrix or a superhero movie, it can be forgiven. But a normal person cannot take 20 punches to the head, face and still be able to make smart-ass comments and give 20 punches to the head and not have suffered severe damage to your hands. Skulls are harder than fingers, people. Or someone getting knocked unconscious and then waking up, rubbing the jaw, and the potentially life-threatening concussion is magically gone.